Welcome to Blacklight on Sports. My name is Charles Hallman,
I'm Dr. Mitchell Palmer McDonald.
and this is a time that we talk to community people and sports figures and those and the like. Tonight we have Mr. Deane Brown, who is a longtime educator, former basketball coach. He's also involved in some community involvement opportunities as well. And I think that as we'll pursue our talking, that he also has a young man who's doing well, and one of his two sons are doing well in college right now. And so, Mr. Brown, thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys.
Now, Dean, we've known each other for what, 30 years, roughly?
Yeah, I believe we first became associated in approximately 90 or 91 at
Yeah,
Totino Grace High School.
yeah, it's been quite a while. So just talk about what brought you to Minneapolis, what kept you in Minneapolis, and the things that you've done even before you and I met. But just give our audience, a little taste of what your background.
Okay. I first moved here in 1989 from Cleveland, Ohio. Uh, I had completed most of my studies at Muskingum College. And like a lot of young men at the time, I wasn't sure of what I was going to do, and I was kind of drifting. And it's one of the most interesting stories I used to always share about my mother. But she kind of gave me an ultimatum of finish the classes I needed to take because I had taken all my major classes. I had 100 and 200 level classes left to complete for my degree. But she gave me an ultimatum to uh, either find myself a steady job or go back to school and complete my studies. And my response at the time was, you know what, I am going to do both. And I am also going to move. And I had my best friend at the time had completed his studies at St. Cloud State, Tony Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him, could I come up here? And when he came home for July 4th in 1989, on July 6th, 1989, I moved to Minnesota. And I have not looked back since as far as that goes. I completed my studies at MCTC to get my teaching license. And then I had my first teaching job at Washburn High School in 1992 is when I started. Prior to that, I worked at St. Joseph's Children's Home, which I notice now is called the Hennepin County School up there on 46 in Chicago. And so that was my first job when I moved to Minnesota, was working there.
Did you always see yourself in education?
You know, initially in college, I started out as a business major. And then, like a lot of people, as I started taking those classes, I realized that was not necessarily what I could see and envision myself doing. I knew I wanted to be involved in sports and coach. And I thought about what career would allow me to have the opportunity to coach. And looking at my transcripts, I realized how much I enjoy history. And that was something that I was doing best in school. And so I kind of put the two together and thought of why not be a teacher, and then had an opportunity to coach. And then that's how I came upon this career.
Now we ran into each other. We was one of two coaches of color at the Tino Grace at that time. I think maybe we went in the first two coaches of color, and you was on the boys' side, I was on the girls' side, and that's how we connected. We
Yes.
stayed connected from then on out. But talk about your coaching journey, how that started, and how that came about.
I initially started coaching when I was still in college. One of my uh, one of the seniors ahead of me, a couple years ahead of me, had got a job as a varsity coach very close to the college. And after my sophomore year, I decided that I was no longer going to play basketball. I just, the demands at the time and where I was as a young man at the time, they just didn't go together. And so I wanted to focus on making sure I graduated. But I also had the opportunity to start coaching. It was at a similar school to Totino Grace in that it was, excuse me, called Rosecrans High School in Zanesville, Ohio, just outside of Muskingum, the college I attended. And so that was my beginning coaching journey. I was the ninth grade coach. That year, we made it to the semifinals in Class A. And the interesting thing about that is we got stumped by a team that had Funderburk and Jerry, I forget the other young man, both went to Ohio State. But they stomped us out, man.
Columbus Worley.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that was my first opportunity to coach at that particular school. And then when after moving to Minnesota and having a chance to work at Washburn, I was had a chance to work with the ninth graders under Coach Louis Boone, and then I got hired out at Totino Grace to work out there, and so that's kind of sometimes in hindsight, I think, man, what if I would have stayed at Washburn and just stayed up under Boone instead of taking the other job? But you know, that's just hindsight and speculation, and I don't think I would change a thing.
Did you find it hard to adjust when you came from Ohio to Minnesota? Was that
It was different in the sense that in Ohio, it was a larger black population. It was more to do in that sense, but being a young man at the time, you know, you adjust to the scenario that you're in, and so that really didn't affect me. I knew my goals were to become independent and then move forward from there. And so it didn't really matter where it was going to be. I knew what I had to do. It happened to be Minnesota because that's where my best friend had attended St. Cloud.
Gotcha.
And he was here. I had come up to visit and enjoy my visits, you know, in the sense that it was a different vibe than it was in Cleveland at the time.
Oh, so you were visiting prior to?
Yeah, I had visited him
Okay.
at St. Cloud, and I visited 1 year at St. Cloud. The following year, and it was an interesting scenario. While in college, after I quit playing basketball, I went into the reserve. And so each summer, one summer before I went into basic training, I came up and visited St. Cloud before I left to go. And then the following summer, before I went in to do my MOS or job skill training, I also came up. And then so 1 year he was in St. Cloud, the following year he was in Minneapolis. And so I had gotten a chance to get a feel for the area. And so the following, after getting done with school, because I was still in school at the time. And then I knew this was a place that I enjoyed visiting.
Yeah.
And so when it was time to remove myself from Cleveland and put myself in a position to be independent, because, you know, sometimes when you have family and friends that you can depend on, you don't necessarily stand on your own feet the way you needed to. And so I needed to remove myself from Cleveland and be somewhere where I had to stand and depend on myself.
Okay. No regrets.
No regrets. No regrets. You know, before my mom passed, that was one of the things we used to joke about, that I appreciated that she kind of gave me that ultimatum, and you know, the fact that I took her up on it, and whether or not she really thought I was going to bounce when I did. She never said it, but I found out from others that she didn't necessarily believe that I was going to go and be gone, but she's glad she said it also, because it led to me becoming a man, you know, in that sense.
Okay.
Right, you left Totino Grace and you became a head coach at two different schools. Talk about, because you coached both in an urban setting as well as suburban setting. Compare the two, and if you could.
I don't know if I'm really call Park Center a suburban setting, but maybe at the time that when I first got the job, it still was. It was a interesting scenario, and it was a culmination, you know, as a youth, a young man, and when you're striving to get an opportunity to do something, and it happens, you're very appreciative. It happened at the time that I was also just starting my family, and so it was an interesting because I'm like, man, I thought my son Jamal, my oldest son, was gonna be born like at the time of my first game, and we opened the season with North, and then was playing Henry the next day,
Mm.
and he was born on the December 9th, which we had a Tuesday and Friday game, and he was born on a Thursday. So I didn't have to miss a game to deal with that. Unfortunately, we didn't win either of those first games, but that was okay too. Uh, Interesting enough that you bring that up. Yesterday or this weekend, I do a little youth refereeing on the side. Um, One of the young men that you'll appreciate this because you had a connection to him too. So I'm running down the court and I hear, and it's like fifth grade girls, not necessarily the best basketball, but they're out there playing. And I hear somebody say, Coach Browne. And I look and I'm like, okay, I don't know who this guy is. I got to go look. And because he's probably in his early 40s. And he says, it's Opie. Remember the young man that went at Clyde's camp? A young man that went to the camp and he balled out down there, and he was one of the few Caucasian campers that we had. Well, that's where I first met him at Clyde's camp, but he also was on my first team at Park Center. And I hadn't seen him in quite a while. And so I just ran into him this weekend. So that was really cool. And at the time it was great timing because when you're watching, let's say, not competitive basketball for a certain amount of time, it gets hard to pay attention. Well, that happened at a point in the day that it helped rejuvenate and energize me and help me get through the rest of the day as far as that goes. And so that was really cool in terms of that first job with Park Center because he was, we say we don't have favorites and all that as coaches, but in reality, you do connect with some of your ball players more so than others, and that was one of the guys I connected with.
And you mentioned Clyde Turner. You worked his camp. Talk about his influence that he had on you as a coach uh, to work with kids because, as we know, Clyde didn't just bring basketball players in. His objective was to just work with young people and get them something that they could become model citizens or become citizens in the world. Not necessarily basketball. Obviously, that was the hook, and that brought kids in there. But we all knew from the years of working Clyde's camp, less than 50% were hoopers, and the others was just kids that somehow went on, and many of them went on to become successful, and some didn't. But that's how that goes. Well, talk about Clyde and
The first thing I will say in that regards will be on a personal level and how he influenced and mentored me. And I won't go too deep into the story, but I am no longer married to my son's mother. But there was a time and a point where we were working a camp, and it was after the camp was done, and we had a meeting, you, Clyde, and I. And in conversation with us, Clyde just made the point to say, "You better go marry that girl." And we did get married, and we had two wonderful children from that marriage. And we've enjoyed there's obviously more to that story, but we'll tell you off air. That's not one we're gonna share on air. But from that standpoint, that's one way just in which Clyde touched me and mentored me. But one of the things I learned from Clyde that he stressed to us as the people who were responsible for implementing his philosophy at his camp is that everybody deserves a second chance and sometimes a third and a fourth chance. And so that there was nobody that Clyde didn't see worth in, and that he always found a way to bring someone back in. He might allow them to be disciplined, but he would not allow them to be ostracized. And so if you got to the point that we said, Clyde, this boy need to go home, and he let you actually take somebody home, then you probably done went through definitely more than 3 chances, because that was one of the tenets that Clyde had, that he stressed to me, is the need to give people another opportunity. And so that would be one of the ways that I think he invested in people, and that's one of the ways that I think his legacy lives in me, is understanding that you give people another opportunity.
Now, talk about your 2 sons. I've known them since day one, and now they're adults. But they both had interesting careers as in athletics. I don't know if they got that from you or their mom, but in terms of the talent.
I coached them, but I'm not gonna say their mom did not. Her genetics are in there, so I'm gonna say it from that standpoint. I'll start out with my oldest son, Jamal, which is an interesting journey in itself, because he had the talent and was being recruited coming out of high school as a quarterback, but at the time he didn't want to play. And so he wasn't committed, and it bothered me. But I knew I couldn't go to practice for him, so I had to accept it. He went to school at Mankato, and like a lot of people, maybe people take gap years or things of that nature. I used to call it the Jamal Browne homecoming tour one year, because I should have got him like one of them concert series T-shirts, because he went up to about 7 different people's homecoming. So I still joke with him about that. COVID hit, and basically his 2 years at Mankato before that were kind of a wash. He was coaching at St. Louis Park, which he graduated from Park Center, but he had attended and played for a coach at St. Louis Park who had ascended to the head coaching position, who brought Jamal in. He realized he still had a love of the game. This was during his brother's freshman year, and he saw the expense of school. Now, coming up, I told my sons, I'm a good enough coach and a good enough teacher that I can get you to college and get that paid for. I have no money to do it. You expected to go to college. I can put you in a position to get either a scholarship athletically or academically. But you're going. It's an expectation that you're going, and I'm telling you now, I can't pay for it. Well, he saw his brother in school, and he was realizing this is kind of expensive, this route I'm going. He figured out he wanted to play. I happened to be wearing this. He sent some letters and kind of to some people that had previously recruited him, created an opportunity for himself, went to School of Science, was a backup. As a dad, I understood he was the backup. The gap was not as wide as it made it to appear. He played some. He was able to get enough tape. Last game of the season, they're undefeated. The starting quarterback is out. They're going to put him in, let him start. He wins JUCO Player of the Year for the week. Player of the week. He has 24 for 28, 424 yards, 4 touchdowns. And it happens on the weekend. The game was up at Masabi. I went up there. It was the same weekend that basketball had started practice. His mom had come in town from Omaha. She moved. His brother was at the game. We was all at that game. He lit it up. He was not going to be able to play there. He goes to Masabi the next year. They had their guy. He got enough tape to get recruited to go to Dakota State, which was a 4-year. So he leaves there, goes there. Within a month, they switch him to receiver. So he didn't, and there's some behind the scenes stuff, but he switches, he plays, because he has 2 years. He played, didn't get really many opportunities. Long story short, this year is the first year he's not playing. He's finishing, working, going to school. He's got 1 year of eligibility, and I told him after you graduate, if you want to use it, then use it. But right now, focus on graduation. So that's my oldest. My youngest is playing at UMD, and he has had an excellent Division II career. He had basically a red shirt year in terms of half a season with COVID. They only had 13 games that year, but coming out following that, man, they're coming off of 3 straight NCAA appearances. They won their region one time, got to the Elite Eight, got defeated by Black Hills State. Then they won a tournament game last year, lost to Northwest Missouri, but Mankato won it last year in both girls and boys. But I just realized I thought it was more than this. Mankato only had 1 loss last year, and that was to Duluth. And so they've been playing at a really high level. They had an All-American player. They basically had 5 young men that were together for 4 years.
Okay.
And now they've got 3 of those guys that are still there for their 5th year. Charlie Katona out of Shakopee, Austin Andrews out of Eden Prairie, and Joshua Browne out of Park Center. And so each of those young men have had a great career there. I'm up there every weekend. Every chance I get, I'm there. I just came. They played yesterday on Sunday. They beat a team, University of Wisconsin Parkside, a Division II team. They put it on them pretty good, 73-43. They were preseason ranked 13 by the coaches.
Okay.
And they looked like a top 10 team. So I'm just enjoying it.
Yeah, you got to be ecstatic about that.
You know.
Is this his last year?
This is his last year. Okay. I have a principal in my school. So my principal, both of you guys know, Antoine.
Yeah.
That coached long time for Renee for Howard Putney. So he knows and understands that every chance I get to see my son play, that I should be there. And so his thing is just make sure everything's handled here, and then go do what you got to do. So so far so good. They're 3-0 right now with hopefully more to come. I'm already planning my weekends. I do my refereeing around their schedule, and I use that youth refereeing to kind of help pay for some of the things I like to do, such as going to see my son play. So that's why the other day I was talking, I go to my happy place. I say when it's bad, not the most competitive basketball where it doesn't necessarily require your full concentration. And kind of my happy place is thinking about going up there to watch them play. And so I know what I'm going to do with the money. So I know why I'm doing it when I'm out there.
Man, you mentioned Clyde as a person that influenced you. Are there any other people that you can think of that influenced you? Either whether it's in education or coaching or.
Yeah, there are a few. Obviously, I would say my mom was instrumental in who I've become and the person that I believe I am, and what she taught me. Just in terms of integrity and how to carry yourself and represent. And so she was instrumental in that. I've got a 8th grade, when I was in 8th grade and just the ultimate knucklehead, there was a social studies teacher that knew I had some talent, and he saw something in me that maybe at the time I didn't even see in myself. And he just gave me that attention, that just helped me kind of not be as big a knucklehead, I guess, as I was at the time. I had a history professor at my college that worked with me at a time that just kind of let me know that you can do better, but sometimes you deserve a chance. And so I'm going to give you that chance and opportunity. Don't make me regret it, type of deal. And so I've kind of, those type of things have really had an impact on me. I don't do it necessarily that often, but I feel like it's kind of like the idea of pay it forward and help somebody else, even though they may not have done all they could. You help them with the idea that they're going to do the same thing for others like somebody did for you.
Mhm.
And so, that's kind of, I'm big on that to the extent. I'm big in just trying to be honest. I won't say brutally honest, but I feel like a lot of the young people we work with, I
Mhm.
feel like people are selling them a false bill of goods.
Mhm.
And just so I think that's important. And then also just in the sense that being a black male in the school, it's not that many of us.
Right. That's for sure.
Now, you're also a part of the Mr. Basketball selection committee. Uh,
Yes.
uh, and I want you to talk about that because for years we always had concerns with that committee and how they looked at players, especially players of color. Uh, and so you being part of that committee is very important for a lot of ways. But let's talk about how you got involved in that committee and what is some things that you are charged to do on
Uh,
that committee.
The for you guys can probably assume a lot of the people on the committee, because they will uh people will try and be in their ear or whatnot, don't necessarily want to be identified. But from the standpoint of myself and the person that brought me in, John Robinson, who longtime coach over in St. Paul,
Mhm.
on the girls side in
Mhm.
particular and the boys.
Mhm.
I know you know his
Yeah.
daughter Angel
Oh
and
yeah.
all that. You know John.
Yeah.
Um, he's been a part of the committee, and he knew that I was no longer coaching. And when they had an opening, he asked me if I would be interested. The other committee members talked to me and they decided to give me an opportunity. I've been appreciative. Uh, Basically, the responsibility is get out here and see as many games as you can. And so it's been a challenge these first couple years because I'm trying to balance those responsibilities while I'm getting up to Duluth a lot too.
Mhm.
And so the fact that the new technology, the fact that they got a lot of the games you can get on YouTube and things of that nature has helped me in my responsibility. I really look forward to it. Um, I like basketball. I've been around it my whole life. And so to me, it just fits my personality. And so I'm doing the best I can with balancing those responsibility with getting up to see Duluth. I feel like once I get past this year, I'm going to really get into it even more. But basically, we're out here trying to make sure we see the young men that get identified on the watch list. We want to try and be fair to all of the young men. There was a concern that some of the people were getting overlooked. Another committee member that I feel comfortable that won't be bothered, that knowing that he's on there, is Rob Mestis, a former Mr. Basketball,
Mhm.
is also on the committee now. And so they've done a good job of trying to balance, making sure that um, you've got people who are in the outstate areas will get there, but that you also have members of the committee who are of color
Mhm.
and that have been a part of the basketball community. Um, and so I've enjoyed my experience. This will be my third year now. There's been some very close races, various is I like to think it's been settled on the court. Some of the meetings, we hash things out, people express their opinion,
Mhm.
and then we come to a consensus and kind of work from that standpoint. But it can get a little bit hot. You've got a lot of different personalities, and
Mhm.
people have their thoughts about something so important. So um, again, it's we talked a little bit. Mr. Robinson left it in a good place in terms of the people that he made sure was a part of it before I even found out, and so they seem to be very good stewards of the scenario and situation. And so I just hope to be a part of that.
I can't let you get away without talking about your daughter.
No, okay, please don't. And yes, that is. We were talking athletics, and I will get to her. Sometimes it may seem like I leave her out because then I date myself. But my daughter Natasha still lives in Cleveland, Ohio. She happens to be 41 now, and so she's working. She did at one time work um, in the Metro Police. The Cleveland schools had their own kind of the police department. She now kind of is working more security at the library, but she's just a really nice person, man. And so I've been I've been blessed that I've had 3 children, uh, and each of their families I have nothing but good things to say. In the sense of when I was still in school, I'm so appreciative to her grandparents on her mother's side, just because knowing that they were there allowed me the freedom those first few years to do what I needed to do so that I can get to the point that I could contribute and help take care of her. And had that not been the case, then I wouldn't have I wouldn't have been able to take care of myself as well as I did to get to that point. I look at it and look back. I believe in my mind that I did my best to be a father after about she got to be 8. She was born when I was 19. And so I didn't know what the hell was going on. I didn't know what I was doing. I was a kid. And I counsel and talk to young people today about, to a certain extent, you try and have your 20s to yourself so that when you do have children, you're prepared for it. You've had your chance to be selfish already. And so it took me that long to work myself into the role that I was able to be her father, in that sense. But she's doing good, man. And I'm in the process now. We're already starting to plan that end of the season, senior year game. I've already got the B&B reserved up there, and so she's coming in for that. We're gonna enjoy that whole aspect of it.
I love, I got to see her a lot because you brought her up. She came up for summers, and she was, yeah, and she was just very good. Like you said, she was very nice. But I was shocked when you told me she was going to be a policeman. I said, her, I just didn't see that
right.
in her.
I kind of didn't either. She's always been athletic and physical, and so from that standpoint, it did fit. Um, it didn't become necessarily her career as we thought it may have, and I'm okay with that too because of all the turmoil going on with the police at this point in time, unfortunately. Yeah, man, she is good people. She is just. I have a saying because long time ago I try not to use the word prideful or pride. I've tried to eliminate that from my vocabulary, but my children represent me well. And I like to think I represent them well also. And so that's kind of how we look at it. And so, yeah, she represents me. That's my oldest, Natasha Marie.
And we haven't talked a lot about your teaching career, but
Yes.
you are a successful as an educator. You've done that for a number of years. Close to retirement.
Not really. I am, and then again, I'm not for 2 reasons. I'm guess I'm 3 to 5 years. You got to have that whole healthcare issue and those things taken care of. So I just turned 60 this year. So, and then I'm still enjoying myself. And again, I have a principal who they used to call love. You know, love is my principle, man. So I'm still enjoying what I'm doing. I think I'm effective. You know, there were some things, like I said, this year I'm doing all ninth grade, and so that's kind of rejuvenated me a little bit. You know, I've got different team members I'm working with now, a couple younger teachers, and so that's helped. Um, I like it, man. I enjoy the interaction. I've had the chance to possibly get into administration. I chose not to. I would much rather deal with the young people than the adults at a school. I being a teacher, I feel okay saying this. Um, Teachers is crazy, man. And so I didn't want to deal with that. I'd rather deal with the kids. And so that's kind of my attitude. And then I've looked, but I haven't found a job with a better schedule yet, man. And so
That's
until
true.
I do, you know,
That's very true.
I think my schedule, I in my mind I assign a monetary value to my schedule. And I just think it would be very hard for me to look at somebody and they tell me, well, we're going to pay you this number, but you only got 4 or 5 weeks off for the year. Because, man, that's going to be a problem. You know, no, because you want me to come to work every day in the summer? The golf course is calling. So, you know, I've grown accustomed to the lifestyle of teaching. Um, I wasn't necessarily monetarily motivated, obviously, staying in education, but I've been able to do what I need to do. Now, I've always had a second job. You know, even now, I still work at Minneapolis Parks and Rec. And so I work over at Falwell Park also. And so all the things I've done have put me in a position to interact with young people.
Well, we always, and, you know, I've known you for so long and watched you grow, and we've butted heads many a time. But it's been love, you know, with love. But I've also supported you in all your efforts that you did, and I know Clyde did as well when he was with us. And watching your kids grow, you know, has been I can't believe they're at the age they are,
Right.
because I remember when they
Right.
used
The
to run,
same thing.
they used to run around, us, and they was always in the way and stuff like that. And then the talk with both of them last spring, uh, and that was during the time when, you know, our schools had made our run
Mm-hmm.
to the state tournament. That just, you know, put a lot of positive feelings, because, you know, my team did something we hadn't done in years, and then watching those two young men and they're interacting, you know, and I say, well, I can't believe that y'all grown. I just couldn't believe that.
I it's a nice transition in the sense that we're not friends yet, but we're pretty close, and that's developing. But I in general, obviously I'm biased, but I like the men they're becoming. When I look at them, I like what I see, and so yeah, it's fun. It's fun watching that maturity and think you've hopefully played a positive part in that, in who they become. And then I'm very thankful and pray all the time the fact that, you know, they haven't given me a whole lot to worry about. Uh, Whereas I know that didn't necessarily have to be the case. So, you know, I talked to my mom a few times and asked her what was her secret when I was driving her crazy, and she said prayer. And so I kind of took that on, and you know, just okay, I'm gonna just pray on it, and hopefully things turn out the way they need to. But thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Um, we always ask our guests to share with our viewers and listeners words of wisdom, pearl of wisdom, if we call them, that they can go away with. You know, this, we don't like just talking sports because
Right.
sports is just that's something that can always be talked about. But there's always other things that people are watching us for, and that we give you that opportunity to speak to our viewers and our listeners.
I say this a lot in my class, and my friend brought it to my attention and said it a lot. Sean Davis, who also used to coach at Totino for a little while, proper preparation prevents poor performance. And I think that applies. I say it all the time in class. And so it applies academically, it applies in the sports arena. I think it applies in life and in the world that when we are prepared and when we've put in our time to get prepared, we usually perform better. And so I try. I'm not going to say that's my motto, it should be, but I try and keep that in perspective in a way and share that, and another way I say that is there is no substitute for putting in your time. And so what it may take me 30 minutes to do, it might only take you 15 minutes. I can't get jealous about it only took you 15. I still got to put in my 30, and so I think we each have to be aware of ourselves and understand what we need to do in terms of that preparation. So I try and keep that in mind. And I try and use that and share that bit of wisdom because it's always helped me when I've put in my time like I'm supposed to. I've always seemed to benefit from it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Browne.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to come on such an esteemed program with people I hold in high regard. So, I gotta hold the social studies teacher in high regard there, so a member of the profession and I mean you still an old curmudgeon. I'm only one of the few people that can get away with calling him that too, so I don't overuse it. But you know how that goes.
Okay, well, thank you, Deane,
Man,
for
that's a
being part of
pleasure.
us. We appreciate that, and we hope that we can get you back here again as time permits.
I look forward to it.
This is Blacklight on Sports. My name is Charles Hallman.
I'm Dr. Mitchell-Palmer-McDonald.
We thank you for joining us, and we hope that you will continue to read us in the paper and join us in the future. Thank you very much.